Okay, we are then, I'm going to start the audio in then 3, in 2, and 1. Welcome back, everyone, to another exciting episode of Aaron's Opinion, the podcast for blind people where we speak about critical issues in the blindness community and all other issues from across the universe and galaxy. Today, we have the distinct privilege and honor to be joined by Donna Jodhan, the sight loss coach. I've heard of you many times over the years when you spoke with Victor and various creators up there, and I just want to ask you my one question. So, who is Donna Jodhan? Who is the sight loss coach? Let's really dig into the philosophy of your life and everything about that. So go right ahead. Your hour starts now.
Thank you very much. Who is Donna Jodhan? Well, Donna Jodhan is simply one who goes out there and does her best to make a better future for our kids, because I truly believe that it needs to be done. It needs to be a better future for them, better than the future that I inherited. I am the person who started my advocacy journey in year 2000 when I realized that many of the Canadian government websites were not accessible to those of us trying to find a job with the Canadian government. And by the way, I am a Canadian. I live in Toronto. I grew up in Montreal. I've been in Toronto for quite some time now. So back to my story. I decided to approach this in a very methodical way by writing letters to the various departments of the Canadian government, asking them to meet with me as an accessibility advisor / consultant to talk about the barriers facing job seekers to the government of Canada. Unfortunately, I wasn't taken seriously at the time. And it took about 6 years before I finally found a lawyer in Toronto who told me that, you know what, you have a perfect case for launching a charter challenge against the Canadian government. At that time, I didn't really know what the heck it all meant, but I thought, what the heck, let's go for it. And thus began my journey. My lawyer wrote to the Treasury Board Secretariat of Canada, pointing out the fact that these websites were not accessible, and their response was very swift in that it said simply, "Thank you for your letter. We will look into it." But this wasn't enough for me, and in 2007, I officially started the legal portion of this journey. My lawyers sent them a letter of protocol action, and they tried to have my request stayed, meaning that they wanted it to be put on hold for God knows how long. They failed. And over the next 2 to 3 years, it was back and forth, with me lining up my accessibility expert. I had one of the best in the world. Her name was Jutta Treviranus. She's Canadian. And the government hired Cynthia Waddell. She is now passed on, but she was really well-recognized lawyer in the United States as their accessibility consultant. And to cut the story short, we had to have depositions where they got to question me and my lawyers got to question their witnesses. I was asked over 189 questions in 6 hours. I'm still here to tell the story, but it was a very, very challenging experience. It was heart-rending and heartbreaking to see that this government knew that their websites were not accessible, but in essence, they just wanted to wear me down. There were many nights when I went to bed saying, what the heck am I doing? But I had a good team behind me who kept encouraging me, supporting me, providing me with necessary information. So in 2010, we went to the lower court of Canada with our case, and my side won the case, but the government was not happy or satisfied with this. They decided they wanted to go to the Court of Appeal, because at the lower court, the judge specifically said that they had to make everything accessible. So on we went to the Court of Appeal, and in 2012, we won a unanimous decision at the Court of Appeal where the judges said, yes, Government of Canada, your websites need to be made accessible and you need to engage more vociferously and robustly with the disabilities communities of Canada. Since then, there have been improvements and there have been some movement towards the Government of Canada's various departments really making efforts to try and encourage us or try and engage us and communicate with us to do real work. But there's a lot to be done. There is still a lot of pushback and there's still a lot of naivety. And I would say, in essence, a lot of condescension. And some departments in particular unwilling to take responsibility for their actions. In 2015, I kickstarted a campaign to lobby the Canadian government to enact an Accessible Canada Act, because Canada was one of those countries in the developed group that did not have an accessible legislation act or an accessible act. So we lobbied them, we formed a team, we fought hard, and in July 2019, the act was passed. But this is not the end of the world, or the end of the road, I should say. We got to keep on fighting very, very, very hard. And at the present time, I have a complaint before the Canadian Human Rights Commission. I'm not allowed to say too much. It all has to do with an app called the ArriveCan app that certain departments developed but failed to take into account the needs and requirements of passengers with disabilities. And the Canadian Human Rights Commission seems to be dithering and wobbling when it comes to getting these two respondents to really own up to what they've done, to be transparent and to be accountable. This is my present predicament with hardcore advocacy, which is not for the faint of heart. I will tell you that most emphatically. In recent years, I've decided to change my direction into a more amenable type of world for myself, where I'm just worn out. I'm just tired of fighting. Now I'm into the self-help mode and sight loss coaching, where I am developing courses to help persons become more able to help themselves in the field of advocacy, entrepreneurship, being able to do things more effectively and comfortably for themselves. And I have a suite of, I think, 4 different courses. I also have my third course is on helping people to understand how to protect their privacy, their independence, their confidentiality, and their rights. So they not only will obtain counseling or tutoring from me as to how to advocate for themselves, but how to become more productive citizens, because most of them don't think that they are, through my entrepreneurship course. And then I call it the Ask Donna course, where I show them how they can use different tools to help themselves, right? With their privacy, independence, confidentiality, and how to protect their rights. My 4th course has to do with what I call the mental stretch, because I truly believe that so many of us ignore our mental stretch or our mental capabilities to be able to deal with things like trauma, stress, distress, all kinds of things. And my mental stretch is based on this. It is the ability to be able to stretch your mind and your imagination, to motivate your mental capabilities, and to activate your mind and imagination. It's all through practical and natural ways to do it. There's no medical procedure. There's no pills to be taken. There's no nothing. And this is my fourth course. And finally, my fifth course, because a lot of people love to cook and bake. And again, it's showing people, those who are the most vulnerable, like seniors and persons with disabilities, how they can use easy to use recipes to cook and bake. So that's my fifth course. And finally, what I will say is that I just think that the self-help approach or the sight loss coach approach on my part is another way for me to advocate in a different way, right? By showing them how they could do things that are necessary. And who are these vulnerable groups? Well, these vulnerable groups, in my opinion, are seniors, persons with disabilities, single moms, single parents, kids who are on their own and are looking for ways to, crack the barriers of the world and to get going. So to answer your questions, Erin, this is who Donna Jodhan is, and this is who the sight loss coach is.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I just cannot thank you enough for what you have done. I mean, it is so meaningful to me, all this advocacy work that you are continuing to do and will do. I actually, believe it or not, do know how immensely exhausting advocacy is. I am a young person. I'm 32 years old. And when I was a little boy about 20 years ago, my parents had to actually sue the school system in America where I lived. And so I have been through many of those types of hearings and many types of things like that. And it is exhausting and disheartening, but I just cannot thank you enough for just continuing to do the right thing. As you said, you clearly know what the right thing is to do. And that's being an advocate. And really, it takes a very special person to be an advocate. Unfortunately, and I say this, luckily you are a special person who is able to be an advocate. Unfortunately, many people in my opinion are not able to advocate for themselves, and that's a very disturbing problem. How many people, and I don't mean this at all in an insulting way, but a lot of times people struggle to advocate for themselves. It's very common. Yeah. This is a huge problem. I have spoken with several other Canadian creators, of course. Neil Matheson, he's been on my show several times. Of course, Brent and PWD Allies and those guys. They've been on my show several times, and they've also told me how severe the employment situation is in Canada for people with disabilities, and how severe how severe the situation is, and how so many people are, as you said, ignorant and just quite frankly lazy and not willing to take accountability. And that's a very troubling thing. Go ahead.
It is troubling, Erin. And the thing is, I think if you look at it from our perspective, like persons with disabilities, we're scared. We don't know where to start. We don't know what to do. And we get beaten down so many times that we end up saying, why should we? What is it worth? But it is worth something. Because think of it like this. The late Steve Jobs opened our world when he invented the eye devices. It opened up a new world for us. And if Steve Jobs, as a mainstream person, could have done it, we need to follow in his footsteps. We need not to waste what he has done. And we need, as long as we realize that this is not for the faint of heart, instead, we get together with each other. Don't fight each other. You complain less loudly or you cheer more loudly and complain less loudly, or you complain more softly, but you cheer more loudly. This would get us much, much, much further ahead. And there's another thing that I read, oh gosh, might have been about a year or two ago, after Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth passed on. It said one of her philosophies was, do not explain, do not complain. And I think we need to put these two perspectives into operation if we have a hope of breaking down more barriers. Because if we don't break them down, who on earth will break them down for us? You know?
Yes, yes, you are so right. I mean, it's really time for us to stand up and get involved with content creation and start educating people. I think one of the most interesting thing, or the most powerful thing perhaps, is how our podcast here at Aaron's Opinion, we're able to reach a global audience and educate people all over the world. So that's one thing that needs to be done. Is I want to see more blind people getting involved in content creation and public speaking. I have a lot of passion for that. As a teacher, I love to talk all day. Talking just makes me happy. So I think if more and more blind people get involved in public speaking and education and these types of things, that would be a huge help in the matter. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I think too, what we need to stamp out of this world is to make people aware that you need to stop expecting us to do it for nothing. We have lived experience. We have the knowledge, the skills, and the expertise. You need to pay us for what we are worth. Pay us for a very unique skill. Stop looking at us as a charity base. We are here, and you've got to recognize the fact that we have something to offer very special, very unique, and with a rapidly aging population, it's going to become more acute.
Sure. There are more and more blind people every day as people get older and blindness becomes more widespread. It's always an interesting issue, but you are absolutely right. Yeah, yeah. So, initially, let's like rewind a little bit. Initially, back in 2000, when you started seeing these websites that were inaccessible to you, and of course, I was only 9 or 10 years old at that time, but I was just a little guy then. But what really made you notice, and how did you even know back then, fundamentally and philosophically, that this was truly an issue that you needed to notice? How was it even, at that time, the internet wasn't where it is now. Society wasn't how it is now. How did you really notice this problem, philosophically 20 years ago? What made you notice?
I think what made me notice was that the Canadian government kept saying it was opening its doors to more opportunities for persons with disabilities. And I thought, okay, fine. I'm going to test this and see what happens. So I went on to a few of their websites and bingo, I could not apply. And when I sought to speak to people who I felt would be able to help me, they acknowledged the fact that there were problems, but did nothing about it. And I kind of figured, you know what? If we have a hope in hell of being able to work for the Canadian government, who is probably the largest employer in Canada, we can't do it unless something is done. And that's how my philosophical approach started. And then when I actually applied, one department, Statistics Canada, they required me to write an exam as well as do some sort of a test. But then they kept saying it was too expensive to write the exam, to put it into Braille. They didn't know where to go, what to do. And despite my guiding them, they refused. They said no. And then one guy said, you will never work for Statistics Canada. And this is what sort of that was the straw that broke the camel's back when I said, you know what? I got to do something here. Whether it succeeds or fails, it's my duty because I want our kids to have a better future. And this is what drives me every day. Our kids, our kids.
Sure, sure. Not being able to have, the civil service exam, we would call it on my side. We would say that's the civil
Yeah.
service exam. Yeah, sure. Not having that accessible, that's really unacceptable. I've never taken it, but I know a little bit about it, and I do know that now blind people are passing it and taking it, and that these types of exams are accessible, or in many cases, if not perfectly accessible, there's always a way to still make it an accessible experience, whether it's getting help or getting someone to help proctor the exam or certain things. There's always ways of, of making it a possibility. However, one moment, let me let this person in. However, in just saying no, we just won't, well, that's unacceptable. Unfortunately, I have heard that answer many times in my own life. And this is always a major issue. And I'm so glad that you stood up for yourself and started taking actions. That's so good. So now I have a kind of a question in the middle, though. You were talking a lot about the various, legal processes and the ways that administrative law works in Canada. So what can you tell me? A little bit of a crash course in administrative law. What is the landscape of administrative law? How do people, how does filing cases, complaining, how does complaining work in Canada? Every country does it differently. Well, what can you tell me?
The so-called gatekeeper for us complainants to make complaints against federally governed entities as well as governmental departments is the Canadian Human Rights Commission. So you launch a complaint with them, you fill in the forms, which is still pretty difficult to fill in these forms because they're not entirely accessible. Then you go through the process of filing these forms, and then the respondents are notified. They are asked to respond, and back and forth and back and forth. Mediation is offered, but most times mediation is not satisfactory because these respondents, as I have discovered over the years, feel that if they give you a paltry sum of $2,000, you'll just take it and go away. It's no longer like this anymore, right? And, from start to finish, a case could take anywhere from 2 years to 10 years. Like right now, I am fighting a case against two specific departments of the Canadian federal government. I cannot name these two departments, but if someone wanted to be a bit curious, go look for those two departments that created and developed the ArriveCan app. That's spelled ArriveCan. This app was meant to screen incoming persons to Canada to see whether they had COVID or not, and to take the appropriate action if they did, how to isolate them and stuff like that. One had to, work with this app on their iPhone, and it wasn't accessible because how many of us have an iPhone and how many of us have the appropriate internet connections to do it? In addition to which, the website was not accessible, right? So that's what we're up to right now. And these two departments are trying to wear me down by offering what they think is good enough money to shut me up. And they are refusing to take responsibility for the fact that when they developed this app, it wasn't accessible, and they never thought as to how they would fulfill the needs, the requirements, and recognize the rights of Canadians with disabilities. This is what I'm fighting right now. And it looks very much like this complaint is going to go into the ditch because Canadian Human Rights Commission cannot control the respondents, doesn't have the guts, doesn't have the commitment to stand up to them, right? And I'm saying if my complaint doesn't end in some sort of satisfactory solution, this being that they take responsibility for what they've done and admit to what they've done. Don't tell me, well, now you're doing it. You didn't do it then 2 years ago. What means that you're doing it now when you caused me so much stress, when I was traveling back and forth and the ArriveCan app was not accessible. So this is what the complaint system is all about. And it also extends to federally governed entities. That's another story. You also have respondents there who feel that, oh, give the poor blind girl $2,000 and she'll go away. Some people would take it because, their financial situation is different. I won't, because I believe in principle. I believe in morality. I believe that I cannot, in good conscience, go to bed at night saying, well, I took all this money, and it's not that much money. I can't tell you how much, but trust me when I say it's not all that much. I took all that money because I just wanted the money, and I chose to ignore the fact that these two respondents did not own up to what they had not done. So this is what the complaint system is all about. And I will add here that when you talk about the government not adhering to, different things, government departments, companies are the same thing. And I will notably state that the Apple Corporation is one of them. They go out there and say accessibility matters. They go out there and make these huge announcements. But lo and behold, their exams are not accessible. I have a designation of an ACSP, which is an Apple Certified Support Professional. But when I went to write the exam, it was totally inaccessible. I had to hire a proctor of my own to help me write the exam. And even then, he, as a sighted person, could not fully describe the images on the screen. And even today, we are fighting with Apple. But it's so hard. There's a big disconnect between what Apple says and what it does.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that first point about that app on your phone that scans Canadians for COVID as they come into the country. The fact that that app, as you say, is not accessible, that also presents another interesting angle of that, is showing that unfortunately the Canadian government apparently believes that people with disabilities don't need to travel, can't travel, is what that shows. It shows a very low expectation of people with disabilities. I mean, that's the concerning part, apart from the fact that it's not appropriate that it doesn't work. That's a small, I'm not going to say the word small, but I guess in my mind, philosophically, that's even a secondary issue. The big thing is that app not working shows that Canadian people feel that blind people can't travel. And that's really what stands out to me, is what that's showing socially and philosophically. Not to mention that it's not appropriate to build an app that doesn't work, And probably I would venture a guess, I could be wrong, hopefully I am. I would venture a guess to say that if the app is not accessible, well, have you asked a sighted person, how good is the app for sighted people? I'm just purely curious. If it's not very accessible for blind people, that probably means it's not that great of an app to begin with. Just saying,
Well, yeah. It's not accessible to many sighted people. I checked with them and they were horrified that they could not use it. Well, and you're right. It's disrespect. It's a low expectation of blind and vision impaired people on the part of of both the Canadian government and their departments. They don't think much of us. And I even went one step further when they said, oh, well, you don't have to fill it out on your phone. You could do it paper form. I said, and who's going to help me paper wise? And what if I tested positive? Have you thought of the ramifications of isolating me with no one to help me? No family, no friends? You never thought about it. So, I think this is probably going to be one of my last adventures into hardcore advocacy. I will go public. If these guys don't do better to admit the fact that we were forgotten and that we were left behind, I will go public. I have nothing to lose. Absolutely nothing.
And you have everything to gain from doing the right thing. So you
I
should
hope so. I hope so.
You have I mean, simply the fact of doing the right thing, that's what you're gaining. I mean, fundamentally, that's what it's about. It's about, did you do the right thing or did you do the wrong thing? Or oftentimes, and now in our society now, we have to make choices between something that's bad and really bad.
Yeah.
So, at very least, you want to choose the bad choice over the really bad choice, or you want to do the right thing over the less right thing,
Yeah.
But either way, you want to be in the right. And there's many, philosophical reasons, spiritual reasons, legal reasons. But overall, it's just the right thing to do. And it's just a serious, serious problem. Yeah. Yeah. So then how did you, and by your courses and all these things that you do, to coach people. So do you coach people, just in Canada, or have you found an audience, globally that needs your courses?
I am building my audience right now. I'm working with a wonderful lady. Her name is Janet Perez in the United States. And we got some funding from an anonymous donor. And we have developed an entrepreneurial course on entrepreneurship. We're offering it for the first hour, it's $50. After that, it's negotiable as to how many levels we both agree that they would need in order to kickstart their journey to entrepreneurship. Because it's not just about me asking them to complete the form and fill out the questions. It's about me challenging them to really think about it. And after that, giving them situational cases to see how they would react to certain things. So it's really, whatever they want. I will not force entrepreneurship on anybody. Some might just take the first hour, and some might want to go on to more. So to answer your question, it's being offered to any and everybody in the United States, Canada, and around the world.
Excellent. Really, really good. Because we have a very global audience here. Luckily, we're blessed with a global community that will and will definitely benefit from learning from absorbing your knowledge. So that's really, really excellent. Yeah. Yeah. And while we're on the topic of travel, so where have you traveled to, by the way, outside of Canada? You do a lot of traveling, right?
I have traveled a lot to England, Europe, the Caribbean. I've not done enough travel to the United States as I would like. I have traveled to Hawaii. I've traveled to California. I would like to come to New York, but I haven't had that chance as yet. But who knows? And Boston. I've been to Boston.
I see. I see. I actually lived abroad. I studied in England for 3 months. Yeah. So I'm very familiar with that. I've been all over Europe. I've been to France because I speak French. I've been to Germany and all those countries over in many of the countries in Europe. And I too have been, where did you go where have you been in the Caribbean, by the way?
I've been to Trinidad, Barbados, St. Martin, St. Lucia.
Oh, I've been to Lucia. Oh, good. Yeah.
St. Lucia to me I call it Sweet St. Lucia. Beautiful little island with lovely people. Yeah.
Well, that's really excellent. I think that traveling is very, very important. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Now, as far as, you have your course, which is great. So are you also a podcaster, YouTuber, author? I mean, I think you've published several books, right?
I am a podcaster. I am on YouTube. I have written 3 seasons of Detective DJ and the Crime Crushers. I have also written 2 12 Days of Christmas box sets. And I presently produce my 3 shows. They're all up on YouTube. It's Ask Donna, Dining with Donna, and Your Mental Stretch with Donna.
Let's go back. Let's review those. So what was that first show you did? So let's talk about those in more detail. So what are those shows? And the first one, the Crime Crusher one, what is that?
The Crime Crusher series, I have to tell you, I owe it all to Mom, Dad, and Granny, who used to encourage me to tell stories growing up, and they would tell me stories. So it's all about Detective DJ and her team of crime crushers, and we solve mysteries. Some are murders, some are all kinds of things. I wrote 3 seasons of those, starting, I think, it was in 2010. And then I graduated to the 12 Days of Christmas box set, numbers 1 and 2. And I really personalized good old Santa Claus, doing all kinds of things, meeting with world leaders, Santa's dream for a better world, Santa's kids, all kinds of things. So there are 24 stories, all Christmas holiday mysteries. And I enjoyed writing them. I really did. They're all up there.
That's really good. So they're all on your channel, on your YouTube channel.
Yes, they are.
That is really, really good. Yeah. And then what can you tell us more in depth about like Ask Donna and exactly what you cover on that podcast?
So Ask Donna, it's a weekly show. Week 1 is Ask the Blogger, where I talk about different things like how to protect oneself from scams and scammers. I talk about entrepreneurship. I talk about, I give tips on bullies and bullying. And then I end with Donna's thought for today. That's week 1. Week 2 is Ask the Coach, where I give a lot of tips, a plethora of tips on different things for the household. Week 3 is all about, I provide natural and practical tips, like, you know, uses for cotton wool, uses for vinegar, uses for different things like that. And I also slip in at the end of the show questions that I receive from my Ask the Coach. It's not on YouTube, but it's on Facebook, and I post it to Twitter. People ask questions, I respond to these questions. So that's what week 2 is all about. Week 3, as I said, is Ask the Homemaker, and it's all about tips, practical and natural tips. Like I said, how to use cotton wool, things like that, vinegar, all that. That's Ask the Homemaker. And let's just go back to week 2 with Ask the Coach. It's all about a bit of this and a bit of that from Donna's Did You Know diary. And it's I collect tips on a daily basis, and I put them into my diary, and then I publish them for week 2. And week 3 is Ask the Homemaker. And week 4, it's Ask the Reviewer, where I talk about a product review, a review that product that I have used and I recommend to people. The book review is all about authors that I've really enjoyed reading. Now, I will tell you, a lot of these authors are maybe I date myself when I review authors like Jeffrey Archer, Alistair MacLean, Arthur Haley, Helen McInnes. You probably don't know these. You weren't born yet, but that's me. And then the last feature of week 4 is Ask the Writer, where I show people how to write marketing pieces to market themselves, with about things like how to run a daycare, how to become a dog walker, things like that, practical things. So that's what Ask Donna is all about. Now we move to our mental stretch, which I mentioned before. They're practical and natural tips. Let's stretch our mental capacity. Let's regurgitate, recharge, reformat, refresh, and renew our mind and our imagination, and to spark or stimulate our creative juices. We use different senses: sense of hearing, sense of smell, sense of taste, sense of touch, and sense of sight. And then I give brain boosters, brain teasers, all meant to stretch the imagination and the mind. Take care of your mental health. You can do it anywhere, at any time of the day, and for any length of time. That's what the mental stretch is all about. And finally, dining with Donna, I have a lot of fun with this. Every week, I give a different recipe. I give the implements that they would need, the ingredients that they would need, and I tell them how to do it. I give them a main recipe, I give them a bonus recipe, and I give them tips. And again, it all goes back to my self-help courses, in that, there are a lot of people who say, oh, I can't do it because I'm blind, or I can't do it, I'm too old. None of that. I give you recipes that you can easily use. And, cooking and baking in the kitchen is a great way to socialize. It's a great way to chat with each other. So this is what my 3 shows are all about.
Excellent. Really good. Really good. So it sounds like the Crime Crushers show that you wrote 3 seasons of, is that, just to be clear, is that like a fictional show that you've written, or is that based on real things that happened?
No, they're fictional.
Okay, that's what I thought,
Yeah.
but that wasn't clear. But that's really good that you have both a strong hand, a strong command of writing fiction and writing, well, and reality. That's extremely useful to be able to use both sides of the narrative, to tell stories. Yeah, that's really excellent. Yeah.
Thank you.
So are you still, because I remember I haven't really heard much from them, but are you still on that Whose Blind Life Is It Whose Blind Life Is It Anyway with Victor? And do you still are you still part of that network?
Well, Victor, I think, ran into some medical issues, and he has put this on
Ooh.
hiatus for a while. So I'm not with him right now. I'd love to go back with him whenever he's ready. So that's why I've had to branch off on my own to my own YouTube channel, because I was with Whose Blind Life Is It up until last August.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, I wondered. I haven't heard much, so
Yeah.
I wondered. I guess what happened. Yeah. Are you? I'm just curious. Are you on? Are you on Discord? Because there's a lot of blind conversations. A lot of people in the blindness community now have switched over to Discord. By the way, just out of
No,
curiosity.
no, I'm
Yeah.
not.
Yeah, it's
No.
pretty cool. I understand if you aren't there yet, but it's a pretty cool platform for having conversations and things like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, so you say that you really want to, create a world that's better for the future. So exactly what is your vision though of a better world? I mean, I don't think it's quite a cut and dry question, really. I mean,
No.
what do you really when I mean everyone would say they would want a better world and a better future for their children, but how do you define better?
I think a better world is one where our kids are going to be more confident when they advocate, and to do it in a meaningful and disciplined and professional way. Not just to say, oh, I'm launching this complaint because I don't like this or like that. You have to be more patient, passionate, compassionate. You have to be disciplined, professional, committed, and those are things that I would love to instill into our kids. Next, to give them the confidence that, they may be finding difficulty obtaining a full-time or part-time job. That's okay. How about doing it on your own? And there are ways to do it. And they would say to me, well, I don't have the money. I don't have this. No, you may not have the money. You may not have this, that, and everything else. But there are workarounds. And this is what I think my entrepreneurship course will teach them professionally and personally how to better navigate the world. And one of my philosophies, and I take this from Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who says, better than possible. Don't just sit there and tell me it's possible. You got to make it better than possible. That's how I look at it. You know, and I have building blocks around my self-help courses. These courses were carefully chosen because I feel that self-help, a lot of people don't know enough. A lot of people want to know more. And I'd like to help give them the tools to do it.
Yeah, that's really perfect. That's really perfect. Well, that's really all perfect. I just keep doing as anyone else would tell you, keep doing what you're doing because you are in the right. You are doing the right thing, and that's really, apart from the fact that you're doing all of this advocacy, the most important thing and the thing that stands out to me is that you're a person who's in the right. You know, spiritually, fundamentally, you know, you're doing the right thing. And that's what's right. You know, apart from helping people, the fact is that you made the right choices and you're making the right choices. You know?
Thank you.
So, by the way, Aaron's opinion, like I said, we are blessed with a global audience. We do have one of our greatest friends in the community. He is all the way from South Africa. He's sitting in the audience. And I'm sure he has questions. It's up to you. It's always up to the guest of the show. Do you mind if I turn on his microphone? Because I know he has questions for you.
Oh, not at all. Go ahead.
All right. His name is Latabo, and he joins us from South Africa. Let's see here. All right, Latabo. So I'm sure you have questions for Donna Jodhan. There he is. Okay, go ahead, man. What do you want to know?
Oops.
Uh-oh.
Can you guys hear me?
Latabo, I think you're going to need to type. We ran into this last time with him. It's nothing personal. As always, this time in South Africa is horrible for the internet.
Oh no.
Yeah, for some reason, very late at night in South Africa, their internet connection is not worth. I can tell you that Latabo is worth everything too. He's also a talk show host. He's also an advocate in South Africa too.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he does a tremendous amount. Try again, Latabo.
Good evening, everyone. I don't know if you guys can hear me. Just let me
Oh no, I can't hear him.
Okay, Latabo, I'm sorry, man. Here, please, yeah. Can you type it, Latabo? Can you type your question in the chat? We can certainly, the chat feature is always accessible. So if you're able to type, that's what I can suggest. So please type it. Please type if you can. Oh wait, it sounds like it's clearing up. Try again.
Can you hear me, guys? Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, because I think maybe it was my AirPods, because my AirPods were like
it's perfect.
Sometimes
Go ahead.
they work, sometimes
so what's your question for Donna?
Yeah.
Go right ahead.
Okay, because I didn't hear much from Donna, but from the bit that I've heard, I just want to ask, like, what type of shows do you do actually? If I could maybe if you could enlighten me on that.
Maybe perhaps you didn't hear what she was saying, but she has many shows. I think maybe your internet might have cut out because she went through a whole explanation. So on her channel, you can find all of her playlists, and we'll certainly put it in the description. But she does many shows. I would like her. I mean, she can if she wants, but I personally don't want her to repeat it. It's nothing personal. I think Lataba, what happened was I think your internet cut out that you didn't hear that part. So that's interesting. But I'll say I will show you the channel and things like that. But yeah. Any other questions that you would like to know? Mm-hmm.
Oof. Um. Sure. I don't know what to ask, but what can I ask now? Okay. Like, what type of like technologies do you like advocate for people with disabilities or blind people especially?
I need to be very careful in what I advocate for other blind people because I don't
Mhm,
want people to accuse me of being, like biased in any way. But
mhm,
I am, like I would always promote the screen readers that I use,
mhm,
NVDA and JAWS. I use
mhm.
Windows 10 and going to Windows 11 very soon.
Nice.
Sorry?
No, I'm saying nice. I mean, like, I like that.
Okay. I use ChatGPT quite a lot.
Mm-hmm,
Um, I use Zoom. Um,
mm-hmm,
I use, a lot of the mainstream software that most people use, like Word, um, Notepad, WordPad, things like that. So I don't know if this answers your question or not.
mm-hmm. Phew. Well, that's interesting. So for me, because I just want to add on what you were saying. Yeah, because why I was saying nice is because like mainly I use NVDA, but it's just my laptop is broken. But
Mm.
I use NVDA sometimes, but when I have like technical issues, but mainly like for like broadcasting, as Aaron has said, I use actually I used to use like Mix. That's the software that DJs use to make mixes, but you can also like broadcast with it. So I used that, and I also use this other broadcasting software called Radio Boss. That's another one that I use as well. So yeah, obviously people they use it as well for podcasting as well. So yeah. And my last question is like, if you were to come to South Africa, let's say for example, if you were to come to South Africa, and then what advocacy for the blind would you possibly do, or what difference will it make?
I think before, if I were given that wonderful opportunity, I'd like to know what would be some of the main issues facing blind and vision impaired persons living in South Africa, and then I would go from there to
Okay.
advocate. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, actually that was my questions, guys. Aaron, over to you.
Thank you so much, Latabo, for joining us. If you guys want to be
No problem.
part of this virtual audience, we're always glad to have you. Anyway, click the Zoom links when you see them. So, by the way, back to you, Donna. I am
Yeah.
sure that after all these months, and I have to be purely curious, have you ever heard of an Aaron's opinion or an Aaron Richmond before you had this conversation? For one, for another, what do you really want to know about me to really make me sweat and see if I'm worth my salt as a podcaster?
I think I'd like to know, something like how far is your audience reach? What kinds of issues do you advocate for? Um, do you provide speaking opportunities for someone like myself? Because I think listening to you, and I did hear about you before now, I think listening to this show, it's been a marvelous opportunity for me to come on and talk about what I do, right? But I don't think it's quite enough to stop there. We need to go out there and we need to convince the world that this is not just a nice to have or nice to do. It's a necessity. It
Absolutely.
is a must that we go out there and we speak to people and we be paid for what we do. Like, this is what I'm looking for, to spread the word, like to tell companies like Apple, you can't stop there, Apple. You can't stop there by just giving us these wonderful devices. You have to help us help others.
Absolutely. So, I mean, my audience is global. We have a lot of listeners. I noticed that I have a lot of listeners in what we would call the developing world. all over Africa, Asia, Europe, Americas, of course, Canada, some in Canada, some people listen in Canada and British Columbia and things like that. I would say what I advocate for a lot of the time is for people like yourself and many others, you, Latabo, many others from around the world, to come up to the microphone and share your knowledge. And that's something that I really believe is that, yes, you're absolutely right. More needs to be done and we cannot stop. You're 100% correct. And it's also important to come here and share this knowledge. This conversation will be now on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and YouTube. And this is a testament that will be, years in the future, people will look back on it as knowledge. So I think that is the value, is that this is something that we can keep coming back to continuously remind people of the importance of speaking up and educating people about these things and making the changes. As far as speaking opportunities that are paid, I do not have that. I do not offer that, but I will certainly share this knowledge with my network and my audience. And certainly you may connect with my groups and continue to spread your channel and your knowledge. And I just cannot thank you enough. So that's what I can tell you. Yeah.
Well, thank you for having had me. It's a wonderful opportunity. Thank you.
You are very, very always welcome here on my show. And so if someone wants to get in touch with Donna, how would they go about doing that?
Write to me at Donna Jodhan, DonnaJodhan @gmail.com.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Donna. Thank you so much, Latabo. And thank you so much to everyone else for joining us today, whether you're watching over on YouTube or wherever you watch. So thank you so much. And click the description and things like that. So
thank you.
So take care. So take care, everybody. We will be back soon. And you're always welcome here. So have a good day and keep on keeping on. And let me know what's going on and we'll keep in touch. And as I like to say, help one person today, help 1 million people tomorrow. For those of you who are still surviving on YouTube, don't forget to like the video, comment below, subscribe to the channel, tickle the bell notification to know when we go live next. All right. Donna Jodhan, you are always welcome here. And I can't wait to hear about all the progress you make. So take care, everybody. And that was a great episode. And we will be back soon. So take care, and we will certainly keep in touch. So take care, everyone. Help one person today. Help 1 million.